let's just throw a little pepper on it. He flies a helicopter.
I say, okay, I know that, my 3 daughters got to go to college. I know I got to pay for 3 weddings. I know, I got to, build some type of legacy and trust for them. All these things I know I'm going to do. So what I do is I separate that income and I make extra. That's it. Now, this is taken care of. I've got that handled. Now, how much more time and energy do I need to invest in order to carve out a whole separate set of investment dollars to go fund a venture? And that's how the mind has to see it. So here's the thing. If you can't immerse yourself at your primary and be amazing at it, don't take on a second thing. Blockchain, NFTs, virtual reality, augmented reality. You've got, all this tech that's pushing its way to the forefront. Metaverse, omniverse. Growing up, my family had a lawn service and a landscaping company, and I worked every single day after school. My dad would make sure the truck came back around on the route. So when I walked through the door, he picked me up, and I worked until the sun went down and after. And then I worked every Saturday, and then Sundays off, we go to church, right? So literally I worked like a grown man from the time I was 10 years old. I always want to be number 3. Number 1 and number 2 are the 2 guys or women or individuals who I'm chasing. So power is a thing that can be, you've got to evolve in order to use it properly. Going back to that whole fear thing again, there's so much fear that's been spread and so much just propaganda and anger that people can be easily distracted. That is the destroyer. Just the distraction and the thought of not being accepted. I remember sitting in this like little lot that wasn't developed yet. We'd pull over and have lunch there sometime. And so you've got my dad and myself and 2 of my brothers, and we're sitting on the tailgate of the truck eating lunch, and people would drive by and scream racial obscenities. So never let that distract you from making money, being a professional, and getting the job done.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars with my good friend Victor Young. Victor, what do we go back, about 20 years or so?
Yeah, about 20 years.
But on your How to Say No Professionally podcast, yes. It's so funny, all of the times I've given that lecture or solicited advice or unsolicited advice, whether it be my kid or a friend or a contractor or a vendor or whatever. And it's okay to say no. Saying yes because you wanted to come through. Here's your line that I love. They put you first and you're putting them last.
Absolutely.
That's gold. When you came on, you actually startled me because I'd lost track of time listening. So I'm going to recommend, even though you haven't put one up in a while, the Daily Life Coach podcast by Victor Young. I'm really excited to have you on. I've been doing this. I started recording so that I'd have more than one recording to release when we started the website. So I started recording late November, around Thanksgiving a year ago, and then released the website February sometime. So we're on about a year that we've been released. And I've thought about you more than once, and I probably asked you to come on more than once because you're an interesting guy, I think. You're interesting from the outside.
We'll see. We'll find out.
We'll find out. So when I learned of you and didn't know you, only heard of you, you were running a local Mercedes-Benz store, to my knowledge. Sound right?
Correct. Loki Motor Company.
Yeah. And I don't know if you know it, but you had a good reputation. I don't know when we met or where we met. I really don't. I don't know if you remember. I don't. But I do remember when I was running a local BMW store that you would call me from time to time on your car ride about acquiring this Lamborghini store and just talking about exotic car stuff and whatever. I'm sure I wasn't the only brain that you were picking, but we were talking about that stuff. And I enjoyed the conversations, and, you know, I'll say it for the public. I used to think, you know, there's people that when I meet them in the car business, and now I've been a vendor to the industry for 10 years, and sometimes I think, thank God I don't work for that guy. Thank God I'm not in the industry anymore. And often I think, man, I could really work with that guy. If he was local, I'd probably get back into retail. Or I could work for him or next to him, or he could work for me. Like, it wouldn't matter which position. You know, I just feel like we vibe or resonate.
Thank you.
In our conversations, I felt that way about you. That's sincere. And you've done an amazing, amazing job. So I'm going to look at my notes. I'm not as impressive as I look. I have to look at the notes for and this isn't Victor's whole resume, but let's talk about what's going on right now. So Victor's managing partner at Lamborghini Sarasota and BMW Sarasota, International Auto Spa, Jaguar Land Rover Ocala. He's a regional director for Morgan Auto Group. And if you're not in the industry, that is a very well-established, very up-and-coming, very aggressive auto group, buying many dealerships. But more important than just buying, a terrific reputation in the dealerships they originated, and then taking over family businesses that already had a great reputation. And, oh, my God, the big corporate conglomerate's going to swallow them up. It's going to go to hell. And they usually get improved. I mean, I know employees of the stores that are very, very happy when Morgan comes in. And that's saying something in the car business for those of you not in the car business. Victor's a partner at Digital Caviar, which is film production. He's vice chairman at Moffitt Medical Group. Global Metropolis. So if we even get there, Victor, I don't know what we're going to get into. You can explain that, because that's a parent company or a holding company. And then Dunamis Premium Spirits, which is a distillery. So Victor's not diversified.
Not at all.
At all.
I like to keep them all in one basket, all in a basket.
And then let's just throw a little pepper on it. He flies a helicopter.
Yeah. You got to keep your brain sharp.
You're just so normal. A helicopter, for God's sake. Flying a helicopter's got to be one of the most brain-sharpening exercises you can do. I think there's a lot of moving parts.
So when a guy is flying a helicopter, say you take a tour somewhere, and your tour pilot's just talking to you. Hey, there's some Stingray over there. There's the president's summer home. There's whatever. You know, he's having a conversation while he's watching his gauges, instruments, air traffic control, wire strike cover, looking for a place to auto-rotate in case he's got a warning light to come. He's doing about 12 things at one time.
What does auto-rotate mean to those of us that are not chopper pilots?
So auto-rotation is this. If you're flying an airplane and your engine stops and you've got airspeed and altitude, you've got time to do a restart. You can call your wife, honey, I love you, I'm going down. I mean, you've got time. You've got a wing, and you can just glide along until you run out of airspeed and altitude. On a helicopter, it's you've got about a split-second decision to make to lower your collective and allow your blades to keep spinning independent of the turbine or the engine. And that energy from that blade will allow you to do what's called an auto-rotation. It's a very it's a controlled landing to the ground, as long as you have enough energy. Is it like
gliding? It just provides some resistance and loft?
It's kind of like gliding without a wing. I mean, it's different. It's a different deal. Not everybody likes the feeling of an auto rotation, because you don't have any options. Where you're going is where you're going, and you just got to control it all the way down to that spot. So.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. So you said the pilot is looking after all of these things while telling you about what's going on below, or being your tour guide.
Absolutely. Good to, great to sharpen your brain. That's why I love helicopters. Keeps you fearless and keeps your brain sharp. And it's fun.
One of your quotes, fear is the number one enemy of success. Lack of fear allows you to fly helicopters.
Yeah. Fear stops people every day. It's really.
You mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah. If you think about it, wow. When you look at someone to your left or your right, or you look at someone who's the exact same position as you, whatever it may be, look at another finance manager, look at another sales manager. And if that person makes more money or has skill sets that you don't have, what's stopping you from accomplishing or obtaining those skills? There's normally a fear of some sort that's stopping you from even trying to become better. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, all these fears. It's the number one killer of men, or distraction for individuals, which causes them to fail. And distractions really can stop you. Nothing can stop you other than yourself, unless you have a physical ailment that may not allow you to do something. Short of that, it's in here, and it's the fear. Without fear, what stops you?
I can really identify with that. If I'm not going to worry about looking good and not looking bad, and being cool and managing my appearance, I can tell you that as I got knocked a few times in my life over a few things, it made me more risk averse than in my teens through 30s, when nothing had really ever of any consequence ever happened to me, and I would try anything. And I'm aware of that.
So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
And that's a great point you just made. When you're 20 years old, you'll try practically anything, right? I want to be successful, I'm in. And then all of a sudden, 10 years later in your life, maybe you want to start a family. You bought your first house. You've got some, expenses and real life big boy bills that you got to pay. So now the decision you would make to start a business or take a leap of faith or invest in a stock diminishes, because now you're thinking, if this risk may cause loss for these other things I've developed over time. And then you turn 40. And then, okay, now I've got kids going to school. I got to pay for school. I can't gamble away junior's education. I've got to be able to provide an education. And then you turn 50 and you're like, oh my gosh, there's college and there's retirement. Oh my goodness, I can't take this risk. And so I looked at it completely differently. I say, okay, I know that, my 3 daughters got to go to college. I know I got to pay for 3 weddings. I know, I got to, build some type of legacy and trust for them. All these things I know I'm going to do. So what I do is I separate that income and I make extra. That's it. Now this is taken care of. I've got that handled. Now, how much more time and energy do I need to invest in order to carve out a whole separate set of investment dollars to go fund a venture? And that's how the mind has to see it. Because if you only see the bill that you got to pay, or the debt, or the mortgage, or the college, or whatever it may be, and the student loans, you'll never take any risk. So I remove that distraction from my mind by reallocating time and energy towards a whole separate pool of funds. Nice and simple.
Well, you have a big job, you have a big career, you're a partner, so you have, let's just call it a big day job. I understand you're a partner and an owner. You're managing a lot of territory. You're managing a lot of businesses. You're managing a lot of people. When you say, to take care of that one thing, 3 weddings, I mean, that right there sounds daunting. I have 3 kids, only one's a girl, so thank God from a wedding standpoint. Is it okay with your partners, and if they had no awareness of it, is it okay from, I was listening to your podcast about how to say no professionally. Is it okay about what you're able to commit and allocate?
As far as time or money,
doing
or
another
which
thing,
allocation?
time, yeah.
Okay.
Doing another thing takes some time, I'm assuming.
So here's the thing: if you can't immerse yourself at your primary and be amazing at it, don't take on a second thing. It's just going to dilute you. That's it. So the Victor Young that you see at in automotive is the same Victor Young that you'll see in production or the distillery or the technology company. I do the same thing. I replicate myself. I know what I'm great at, and I know who to surround myself with. So I see individuals that have to go get a PhD before they feel comfortable. They have to do every job in a company before they feel comfortable for 10 years. You'll never get there. You don't have enough time, energy, or money to do everything yourself. But if you get really good at what you know, to the point where you can monetize it and be an expert at it, that's when you can have a little bit more reach, frequency, and wherewithal that you can dedicate or allocate towards something else. So I'll give an example.
Okay, please.
My distillery. 90% of what I do is in automotive. That's my 90%er. And, but building businesses, structure, recruiting, talent, all those things that I'm really good at, I can literally take a couple hours a week and manage an operation because I went out and I recruited the best people I could find in the country to put in the key positions in operations. So to look over financial statements, to do budget planning, making sure we've got our run rate we need for funding, all those other things it's just top of mind awareness for me. It's something that I do subconsciously. I don't need to go in and set up the mash and check the boilers and make sure the reverse osmosis with the water is right and check the grains, make sure the grains are ground fresh. That's not my thing. I've got other people who love that. They love it. So why would I jump in a position of someone who is willing to do it, who loves to do it, and who's better at it than I am? I leave that to them.
Beautiful.
I'm a
Makes
great
all the
taster,
sense in the
though.
world.
I like to taste. I like
Yeah,
to create the recipes.
You could be the taster.
I can be the taster. My palate
And this
is very sophisticated.
this is not a still out in your back property in the woods or anything.
No.
It's not Tennessee style. Got it. Okay.
So Dunamis Premium Spirits it's spirits made for people who think of excellence. So everything about it is about excellence. It's a reserve. It's premium water sources, premium grains. Even the essence and the flavors have the thought that go into them. So, and here's the other great thing about Dunamis. Dunamis is actually a part of Global Metropolis Corp. Global Metropolis Corp is a tech company. So a tech company owns a distillery, and the reason it's structured this way is because the technology company is working on new innovative means of delivering products virtually and connecting people to their products virtually.
And to help promote Dunamis, is there anywhere that someone can learn about it, or is that not out public?
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's at Dunamis Spirits.
Talk to me about Global Metropolis Corp.
Global Metropolis Corp, technology company. So blockchain, NFTs, virtual reality, augmented reality. You've got, all this tech that's pushing its way to the forefront. Metaverse, omniverse. And I'm watching people that are selling a smiley face piece of art, NFT for, $50,000. And it's because it's this unique, blockchain encrypted piece of art that no one else will have. Unless they change one pixel and then it's different. And then they can resell it, right?
Right.
So that's the Wild West, and it's always going to happen. So a lot of this art's changing hands on speculation. But at the same time, you do have some legitimate artists who are well-known, who have actual art, who now have gone into the virtual or the NFT space. So it kind of goes both ways, but right now it's still the Wild, Wild West. So another issue, and I'll tie all this together. You have the side effects of social media, less eye contact, less human contact, less, there's anxiety amongst people getting in the room with more than one or more, people. We're moving into a society that's becoming more and more social and virtual. So you have to make a decision whether you want to participate with that or not. So Global Metropolis Corp creates deliverables for products for individuals who are embracing the metaverse, the omniverse, NFTs. So we create commercial real estate. We create virtual commercial real estate, obviously. We create products and different types of activities, engagements for individuals who want to be social with their product or with their brand. So Dunamis Premium Spirits is our first brand. So we're going to have actual events that individuals who are bourbon enthusiasts, collectors will be able to be in the same room to sample the products. After they receive it, they'll get a QR code. They can actually be invited into this room, and there'll be a host. There'll be a master bourbon maker who is there who can talk through the essence and the flavors. And so creating different types of experiences. One might be a lounge. One might be at a tiki hut. So creating different rooms and different environments where people can meet collectively, socially around the world and appreciate and enjoy the brand or the product. So that is Global Metropolis Corp. And we felt the spirit space would be a great place to start with our first major brand, Dunamis.
Thanks for tying that together.
Hey, my pleasure.
So let me tell you about my craft spirit tasting experience. I'm a young salesman, late 80s. You probably weren't even alive. Now, you know, like this guy's using a microphone. Carlisle, Lincoln Mercury.
I remember Carlisle Group.
Yep, spent 10 years there. And I deliver a license plate or touch-up paint or floor mats to a customer on the way home. No cell phone, just, hey, here's where I live. Great, that's on my way home. I'll bring it later. Okay. I get there early afternoon, 3, 4 o'clock. I can picture him. I remember his name. Hungarian immigrant, the thick Hungarian accent. I'm in the kitchen with him and his wife, and he opens up the bifold doors to a pantry in his kitchen, and on the floor was these, I don't know, I imagine like we used to get apple cider for my kids. I don't know how big. Vodka with oranges in the bottom of this one and peppers in the bottom of this one, and, you know, God knows. I think there was like 5 in a row. He says, you want to try it? Now, I'm in my early 20s. I had nowhere to be in particular. Day's over, on the way home. And I'm like, I'll try it. And I was not like a straight vodka in a shot glass drinker. That wasn't my thing. At that age, I guess it wouldn't matter what it was, but to just sit and drink it. All right. So his wife lines me up 5. And I can't really tell you how long that went or what happened next, but I can tell you I woke up at 5 a.m. in his Florida porch on the couch. The next day.
Oh, man.
And he did send a lot of referrals after that. It was great for the company. He did send me a lot of referrals after that.
Well, that was one of those memorable moments. So you were his guy from that point forward, I'm sure.
I was his guy from that, no doubt about it. And speaking now, let's just talk about alcohol. So that was I was imagining when you were talking about sampling and craft and flavors. I was right back at this guy's kitchen table. Sweetheart of a guy, loved it. So another really cool, and one thing, folks, that I love about the car business, especially as a young guy, was meeting all these World War II vets and just wonderful people to get to know. One of my customers was a World War II demolitions guy. And he was probably 75 years old at the time. Call me, 23, 24, 25. Sergeant Rock, cigar lit or not, always sticking out of his mouth, flat top, square jaw, looked like a cartoon character. And he invited me, probably the same thing. I was probably dropping something off. I used to do a lot of that. And then
did you ask for vodka on that drop off?
And then meet neighbors, like, hey, by the way, I sold the Colony Park station wagon next door that you see. And again, I'll have to explain to you, Victor, what a Mercury is later. So he invites him and Nick and his wife, Teresa. I mean, this is, again, late 80s. Right? He's in Bel Air and invites me to dinner this time. Invites me to dinner. I said, sure, we'll walk to the pepper mill. Okay. Would you like a drink before dinner? I'm 20-something. I'm at a customer's house. How do you say no? So she brings out TV tray tables on their own stands and sets one in front of me at the couch and sets one in front of him and sets a decanter of water on mine and his and a decanter of whiskey or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the glass and pour the booze and drink it and pour the water and drink it. I don't know if it was 2 glasses or 1 glass. And that was the beginning. Ends up at the restaurant. I recall that when the piano bar fellow would take a break, I was going over to his microphone, probably a little like this one, and tell jokes in the restaurant. And here I am. I'm 56. I can tell the story now. I passed out, my head on the table at the restaurant.
At least you had an off switch.
Well, now that's why I've been sober 26 years. That'll be a different podcast. But stopping is much easier than trying to figure out how many. But he carried me home over his shoulder 4 blocks. 75 years old.
He's a gentleman. Yeah.
So again, in the morning, now his screen door, the bolt lock, had a keyhole on both sides. So now it's again 4 a.m., 5. I don't know. And I'm wondering, am I about to be some kind of?
I saw a movie about that.
Well, I was wondering, like, is this what they do? And am I going to be able to leave? And am I going to be made into clothes or something?
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, let's feel around all the potted plants around this couch, and I find the key. And I left. So I remember, again, no cell phones. I used to, on my business card and on pens and all kinds of things, I always had my home number. And I remember him ringing me sometime the next morning as I was getting ready to go to work. How about a little hair from the dog that bit you? I'm like, I don't even know, Nick, how you do it. Because he drank more than me and he carried me home. So what can I tell you?
Yeah, it's amazing how people like in that era, those veterans could smoke 6 packs of Camels a day, drink a pint of whiskey every day and live to 106 years old and eat bacon,
Right. And sorry to get off track when you're thinking about the drink. I'm like, the sampling. Sorry, that's where I went. I don't want to dilute, or I don't want to discount any of the luxury experience that Victor is. Don't think of me. We must evolve to possess power and success.
Yes.
Give us a little.
Yeah. So I like to give examples, like tie stories in that way you can visualize it. So I'll give an example. And just a little backstory before I make this statement, because it'll sound like I'm going to lead it if I don't set this up properly. So, growing up, my family had a lawn service and a landscaping company, and I worked every single day after school. My dad would make sure the truck came back around on the route. So when I walked through the door, he picked me up, and I worked until the sun went down and after. And then I worked every Saturday, and then Sundays off, we go to church, right? So literally I worked like a grown man from the time I was 10 years old until I left, my house. And so when I say this comment, it's not meant to be, I grew up with a silver spoon and I'm some type of the Prince of Zamunda or Wakanda. I prefer Wakanda anyway. So, because I'm not. It's not where it came from. But with that said, as you continually socioeconomically evolve in the world, you're going to start separating yourself from individuals who aren't as focused as you are, who aren't as driven as you are, who have not had the experiences you've had. One of my podcasts, the Rule of Five, and it talks about how I always want to be number three. Number one and number two are the two guys or women or individuals who I'm chasing, who have proven success, who are doing what I aspire to do. And so I always have two people that I'm looking towards, that I'm either drifting or learning from in some way. And then I have two very aggressive individuals who are number 4 and 5. Those individuals are chasing me, and they're going to keep me sharp on the other end. And eventually positions change. Maybe I pass the number 1 and 2, and I'm the new number 1, and I'm going to find another 1 and 2 that become individuals who I am aspiring to accomplish what they've accomplished. But I always want to keep myself in the middle of the pack. Now, going back again to you've got to grow into possessing a certain amount of power and presence and wherewithal. If you grew up and you were royalty and your family taught you a certain level of manners, maybe there's a caste system, respect, here's how you treat people, here's leadership, here's how people respond to you. And they taught you all these things because they were grooming you for something extraordinary, or grooming you to keep your bloodline royal.
Okay.
In a sense, you're a little bit different. You've been taught to handle power. From a young age, you've seen power, you've handled power. Now you take another individual and they haven't been trained or taught or conditioned to respect and handle power, they can hurt you. It's like giving a guy a machine gun who's never shot a water gun before. Something bad's going to happen.
It's like giving someone a gun versus someone learning karate that went all the way to black. They could both kill, but a totally different level of success.
Totally different.
I'm sorry, discipline and respect and understanding.
Absolutely. So power is an interesting thing. It's almost like in the military. When you hear someone say, their rank isn't high enough to have that type of information, and it's for a reason. An individual that may know they're leading men and women to combat, and only half of them may come back. There's a certain level of responsibility and respect, and the way a code of ethics and code of honor, and every single decision that person makes, they're going to make it cautiously, knowing what's at stake. You give someone that data who doesn't understand combat, who doesn't understand strategy, who doesn't understand a chain of command or the big picture and the big vision, and they may panic and everyone gets killed or a nation falls because they haven't been prepared to be able to handle, process, and demonstrate the right response at the right time. So power is a thing that can be, absolute power corrupts, as they say. You've got to evolve in order to use it properly. And someone who is immature, as soon as they're given power, they normally go backwards instead of forward so they can go and wipe out the people who affected them in their past. And it becomes a weapon. They weaponize it. Instead of creating and evolving and creating legacy and opportunities and fixing, they go back to destroy. It becomes a weapon.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you see it in business all the time.
What kind of animal do you relate to? And I've never asked this on any of my episodes, but you really got me. What kind of animal do you relate to?
Lion.
Okay. And okay. Why?
When I look at a lion, especially the male lion, when I look at the male lion is actually not the most vicious animal. So he's not the most feared in a sense of you take two female lions and they're a wrecking machine. They hunt, they stalk, they kill. They are pretty amazing, right? But when the king of the beast shows up, he's got a certain presence, and every move that he makes is for a reason. Everything that he does is so purposeful. And he can be a wrecking machine, but only when he needs to be. So I think it's a situation where he could be regal, beautiful, powerful, just a lot of depth there.
So here's what I thought of. Have you ever been to Africa?
I haven't. I plan on going soon, though. Going to Ethiopia.
I recommend Africa.
Okay.
I spent 5 days in a tent in Kenya there. And it was photo safari. And I wanted to stay. I mean, it was one of those life-changing things like, can I figure out a way to stay? Because I kind of got away from everything and got into what's important. And even the Maasai tribes living in their mud huts, I mean, that wasn't so attractive to me. But the conversations at the time that I went, like OJ and stuff was going on, and no one knew anything about OJ or Bill Clinton or, any of that. And I'm like, wow, just imagine being that far, and let's help these people get water. I went off on one of those and didn't continue. My life got normal when I got back. But touched me, moved me, inspired me. Still think about it, still talk about it. And stayed in touch with a friend there for a long time through forever mail, and I actually lost touch. Never got electronic, could never connect electronically with. When you were mentioning that you like being number 3 because you like having the couple to pursue, I was thinking of the cheetah. I mean, the cheetah's not king of the jungle. I mean, it's not a lion. It's not the most intimidating. Like an elephant, I think, might be the literal king. I think that the elephant might be the only one with no enemies. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough take down a bull elephant, but yeah,
probably. Yeah. But the cheetah is a definite predator, mainly focusing on gazelles and taking down gazelles. But when I saw from like a Defender 110 or, whatever Defender body, we were out in the bush and, the guy would come into our tent and wake us up at 1:30 in the morning and bring tea and let's get going. And by 2, we're already going out because you got to be in the middle of whatever by the time the sun's rising, because this stuff all starts happening at sunrise. So I saw a few cheetahs live, real time, take down gazelles. But what was interesting is once the gazelle was taken down and they would call their kittens or children, this baby cheetahs, then they'd come out of hiding wherever they are and run over and eat. Or they'd drag the gazelle under something, same thing. But the mother, I believe, that did the hunting, the whole time they're eating is like this. And if you're listening on audio, the animal's looking around, neck on swivel the whole time. Because the cheetah is prey also.
Absolutely.
The cheetah's not like any kind of top. I mean, they're dangerous, very dangerous, and fast, but 100% some other. And it doesn't have to be an animal that's dominant. I mean, it could be a group of hyenas, for example. I mean, it could be,
sure.
Okay, a gang.
Yeah.
It could be a gang, right? So when you were talking about the rule of 5, I was immediately picturing you as a cheetah. You're a predator. You're in pursuit. You're a machine. You do your stuff. You're excellent. You got your 10,000 hours of practice, like, the Outliers book.
Absolutely.
In your area. And at the same time, there's somebody looking at you always at the same time.
Business is the same way. No matter how successful you are, there's always a predator looking at you. And I look back at Elon Musk when he had his Joe Rogan marijuana deal, right? So he smokes a joint on Joe Rogan, and next thing you know, Tesla stock drops 10%. And people said, "Oh my gosh, he is so crazy." That was not a crazy a display of madness. That was a display of power. Because during the time, he was going through some issues with the board. And I think that was his way of saying, let me show you how powerful I am, and let me show you, what happens to Tesla without Elon Musk. And immediately, everything went back to normal. Life was fine. And I think he's kind of brilliant. Not because he smokes weed, but because, again...
Well, he is brilliant. There's no doubt he's brilliant.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways to show power. A lot of different ways.
Well, that's not going to be what I'm going to accomplish on this show.
You're not going to fake one out, of course. Is that what you call it? I don't even know what you call it.
Blow it in your camera.
Shotgun. Is that it? Shotgun.
Let me tell you who I am to you, Victor. So I have an old customer that I made friends with. I still talk to. I started selling him cars for his mother 35 years ago or something. I still talk to him. And he's a VC guy. He invests in a lot of things. He actually had all of the Wendy's in West Virginia area or something like that. That was his background. And his family prior to that was a famous restaurant chain that you heard of. And he's still around, and I still talk to him, so I don't want to out him completely. But he had an opportunity to be an original angel investor in Tesla, rode in the car with Elon on PCH for the concept. And he said, I think it rides too rough, and walked. So luckily his ego, he's not so fragile that he can tell the story of maybe one of the biggest ones that he screwed up.
I think we've all had those opportunities. I remember I had a group of guys about 10 years ago come to me, and they needed $10,000 to buy some mining computers to mine Bitcoin. And I passed on it. And they were like, we'll give you 50 Bitcoins. And it's like, it doesn't sound like it's enough. They're only worth like $1. So I wanted, like 10,000 of them.
Right. I also had the Bitcoin opportunity, I don't know even when it came out, but I want to think 8 years ago or something, 9 years ago, a buddy of mine who started Germany's first mobile phone retail when cellular phones or mobile phones were so iffy still that AT&T pulled out of Germany saying this isn't going to be a market.
Oh, my gosh.
And this guy stayed in it and sold his company to Vodafone, and his partner became CEO of T-Mobile and still is. And kind of interesting. But he's always the one that's on the edge. He's that friend that puts me on the edge of stuff going on. He's that friend. So he's the one that told me about Skype when I never heard of a Skype. He's the one that let me know that, there's this email. You don't have to use the computer plugged in at home like Jay Stearns at tampabay.rr. And, you got to be there to, you can't be anywhere else, or at least I didn't know. He goes, you can do this Gmail thing. And I started you an account. So by the way, Victor, I have Stearns at Gmail. That is my Gmail, but it's because this guy just opened me an account and gave it to me. But he was telling me all about blockchain and like crazy 8 or 9 years ago. And I also did nothing.
Blockchain is going to be huge in the future once the mainstream populace sees the value of it. Blockchain basically is truth and data, right? So it's truth and data. And you have all this, piracy that goes on right now.
Right. I think all contracting, I think it'll be normal soon.
So the problem is with blockchain is right now you expect your data to be true and secure already. So now it's monetizing it. So once companies find a way that they can add that fraction of a penny per transaction to cover the cost of this encryption, and it becomes mainstream, we're going to see a lot more onboarding and acceptance and the ability to monetize blockchain even more so than just for tokenomics or, NFTs or coins and etc. So who's going to use
Here we
it
are.
first?
The hindsight brothers. All right. To you, Victor, building a lasting legacy is the highest level of success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we talked about the timeline a little bit earlier. When you're 20 years old and the things you think about, and you're 30 years old, the things you think about, 40 years old, and then all of a sudden you're in your 40s and you start to realize, what's important? And some people call it the midlife crisis, but it's like the question. I remember I was at a dinner in Sarasota, and Bill Clinton was there. And there was a moderator, and so he's going to answer a few questions before dinner. And so the moderator asked Bill Clinton, 50 years after you've passed, how do you want people to remember you? Or no, the question was, what do you think people will remember most about you? And of course, the whole room laughs because, everyone's probably thinking it's something about the blue dress. I don't know why they laugh, but everyone just kind of laughed. And Bill laughs a little bit, and he answered the question. And he said, first he told a joke. He's a very charismatic guy. And he says,
Yep.
They could think I'm Attila the Hun as long as they're thinking about me in 50 years. And everyone laughed again. He goes, no, but seriously, he says, he starts talking about some of his initiatives. And he talked about his position as president and how some of the decisions that he made as president, you may not see the reasoning behind it until 25 years after he's in office. So, he just talked that hopefully his legacy was one strong enough that people remember him for the positive things he did to shape America. And so it kind of makes you think, when you get asked that question, the work that you do, the money that you have, what's it worth? What do you want it to do or say when you're gone? Because clearly you can't take it with you. And so it made me start looking at my nieces, my nephews, my children. Now I got 2 granddaughters, to see what can I do in their lives so I can affect a couple generations with what I've learned and what I can teach them. And so some of the businesses that you see that I run, it's not because I got bored one night, because I got tired of 15-hour days and I want an 18-hour day. A lot of that had to do with the fact that I have a daughter who's an artist, or I have a daughter who is a finance major. And so I've been involved in different business projects to help build their legacy. So when I am gone, I can be a part of that process to make sure I'm leaving something behind that, my family can continue to develop and grow and benefit from, and they can begin to build their legacies. So a lot of people miss that part. A lot of people just continue to push themselves at 100,000 miles per hour personally until they drop, until they can't take it anymore. And it's a lot easier to build success when you're building it with and for someone else, because you're not doing it by yourself. And so that's another way that I'm able to, I guess you could say, build and grow some of the things that I do, because it's not just for me and I'm not the only one doing it. There's individuals that it's bigger than me. So it's fun. It's
that energizes you clearly.
Absolutely.
I take you as a guy who takes accountability, who makes a decision on his direction. Let me give you a Joe Biden, articulate for a black guy. But, you're articulate, right?
The old Joe Biden.
Which pisses me, whatever.
All the things.
Right. But you're articulate, and other than if your parents beat you merciless about don't talk slang or don't talk street or, enunciate unless you took, I don't know. Did you take that on yourself?
Yeah, we were just, my dad was from North Carolina.
North Carolina,
Charlotte.
Okay.
North Carolina. Actually, Mooresville, to be more exact.
Okay.
Mooresville, Troutman, Winston-Salem, that whole Charlotte metro. Hardworking people. And that's what they knew. They knew work and family. So we didn't get influenced as much by the outside culture that went on. For us, that was entertainment. The real deal was, be successful, have a good family, and work hard. And everything else we saw, again, was fairy tale land. That was all just entertainment or distractions. And so when I see people that, if you live in a certain part of the country, you're going to have a dialect or you'll have an accent. But then a lot of it that's not a customary deal. It's a choice. People, it's a choice. But, I just chose to be Victor, uniquely Victor.
You are Victor, and I don't mean that, look, I don't want to take anything away, like you don't sound black, so a thing here, I'll just say it. I had two HR people on the show.
Okay.
And one was heavy on inclusion and diversity and all of that. And I'm like, look, I'm greedy in business. I've always wanted the person that I thought could perform. And I could care less. Like, I could care less. Now, I offended her a little. She bristled up when I said, anytime when I was running dealerships that if I could get a female, I really, really wanted a female. Because I felt that when they were good, they were more effective than the guys. My own,
less intimidating. Yeah.
I just thought when they were good, if you got a good one, you got a great one,
Yeah.
But she went into, oh yeah, why? And I said, well, listen, they can't rely on talking bench racing with guys about cars as much, and they have to overcome whatever opinion may have going in, a stereotype of a female. Oh, so she's playing I'm playing right into her. You're telling me that a woman has to do twice as much to do as good as a guy? I said, well, in that sense, yes, but they also have some other things going for them if they're somewhat attractive and not attractive. And who knows who's attractive to who, where like, a man calls someone honey, not acceptable. A waitress calls you honey, it's acceptable. They can use some things that a guy can't use that may shorten the line. So she says, okay, and she gets heavily into the inclusion thing and heavy into the diversity thing. And I'm like, look, I don't care who's who. I says, everyone has their thing. I'm always a little turned off by a neck tattoo. Maybe I'm less turned off now than I was 10 years ago as tattoos become more prevalent. But, now I've been a vendor for 10 years, so we don't have so much customer facing. But running stores, especially exotics, right? Well, it was always luxury for me, Cadillac, Land Rover, BMW, blah, blah, blah. I would be a little averse to that. I'd be a little averse to someone that can't enunciate their words. Pick your ethnicity.
Sure.
And I feel like anyone that would, maybe I'm getting too basic, anyone that would show up on time, dress like they give a crap, act like they give a crap about the company and the job, enunciate the words and be clean, is already like the person interviewing them's excited.
Absolutely.
So the white privilege thing that I struggle with, and I know that, one of your podcasts, and I didn't get to listen, you came on when I started to listen about police, so I don't even know where you're going to go with it. But look, I've never been black to be driving while black. So I can't
relate.
I can't rightfully say. I can't rightfully say. How can I don't know, about how strong of an opinion. But I also do have opinions about people who resist or act a certain way. I don't care who you are, that, and, to me, that's not racial because it's the lesson I give my kids. And, of course, Chris Rock did a great How to Not Get Your Ass Kicked by Police, have a white guy and keep your mouth shut. But some of these where people got really, really upset about like a guy resisting and taking the cop's taser and, all of that. And then they the cops beat the crap out of them. Now, running dealerships, I used to ask my managers to have a little mercy on the salesperson or the service writer that would come in what I would call coming off of a 100-mile-an-hour car chase. Because when a cop's coming off of a 100-mile-an-hour car chase, his pupils are dilated. We got the dopamine and the adrenaline and all the stuff going on, and he gets out of the car, and he's happy to be alive and happy the guy didn't kill anyone or maybe did run over someone. And they get out of the car, and by the time they get to the guy, I understand they're supposed to have training. I understand they're supposed to control themselves, but they still, the flaw that we have in any job is there's a human doing it.
Right.
And there's some stuff going on where they might beat the crap out of somebody, and I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying I can understand how it could happen.
Sure.
So when guys would come or gals would come to the desk with an offer or off the service drive with a situation, I used to tell my managers that if the guy's coming to you, pupils dilated off of, that was our internal language to understand what we're talking about, coming off of a 100-mile-an-hour car chase, you got to give them a little mercy about where they are.
Correct.
Yeah, about where they are right now. So I understand that there's been a lot of African Americans that have been very, very successful in America.
Absolutely.
And I understand there's a lot that have not been successful in America. And I understand there's a lot of lower economic class whites that have not done well. And what I don't like is excuses.
Yeah.
You didn't come from a silver spoon background. You've worked a man's hours in a man's job since you were 10 years old.
Absolutely.
I also did. My dad did fine. My parents did fine. I come from middle class. My dad did give me my car when I was 16, and we ate good, and I don't want to act like I came from nothing, but I did leave the house with nothing. So I left with the car. I did have a car.
Okay.
All right. So, and I had my buddy had the big stereo with the side-by-side cassette and the equalizer and the record player on top and the two big speakers. And at 11, how did you get that? I got a paper out. So I went out and got a paper out. And that's how my life went. Like, I want that. You can go do that. And all I said was, if you want more of that, you just go do more of that. And don't be afraid to knock on the door of the neighbor to wash their windows or mow their lawn or shovel their snow, or, you don't know about shoveling snow, or, whatever.
No.
And that's how I saw it. And then when I look at immigrants, Victor, pick your immigrant class, the Cubans, the Jamaicans, the whateverins, the Asians. A lot of them, the Mexican, culture in Tampa. I have a dealer that only caters to them, and there's like a pattern. They come, they share a car, they share an apartment, they go off and start their own business. They immigrate. They have success, like success. And when I'm stereotyping positively.
Right.
So when I look at all these people with no advantage, like no money and can't speak the language and have no social support system, and I'm not saying everybody makes it. Who could stand in your way, Victor? Let me ask you that. Who could stand in your way?
Well, that's no one. That's no one. Going back to that whole fear thing again, there's so much fear that's been spread and so much just propaganda and anger that people can be easily distracted. And that is the destroyer. Just the distraction and the thought of not being accepted. When I grew up in the 80s, in the early 80s, I remember being in Carewood Village on Orange Grove Drive, and we used to take care of all these lawns in Carewood Village. And we had a boat dealer, a guy who owned Checkmate boats, and then there was like Dusty Roads, and we just, we had all these people who had a route. So I remember sitting in this like little lot that wasn't developed yet. We'd pull over and have lunch there sometime. And so you've got my dad and myself and two of my brothers, and we're sitting on the tailgate of the truck eating lunch, and people would drive by and scream racial obscenities.
Okay.
And Carol would. Okay. And
That
I just remember,
sucks.
yeah, and I used to remember it used to make me so angry.
Right.
And my dad will always say this. He goes, Victor, he goes, how many times have you seen them pull over and get out of the car? And I said, never. And he goes, and they won't. So never let that distract you from making money, being a professional, and getting the job done. He goes, now, if someone puts their hands on you, son, you got to handle your business, and you make sure they never do it again. But as long as someone is talking and trying to distract you and talk your livelihood out of you, that's the level of control. And so I've never allowed that type of stuff to get to me. If I can get in your head, now I own you. If I can make you feel a certain way, and within that certain feeling, I've got control, now I'm a winner. So with that said, I had someone who kind of taught me the insignificance of someone's words and to not allow myself to be distracted. And why I bring this up is this. When someone comes here for the American dream, there are no distractions. They don't really care if you laugh at their accent. They don't care if you laugh at their jeans. They don't care if you like their sneakers. They're here to send money back to their family. They're here to get educated. They're here to live the American dream. And I think it's almost the fault, not almost, it is the fault of the parents here because, sometimes a parent can provide so much and require so little from a kid that he can't focus on what's important. Now their focus becomes what someone said on Facebook, what they don't have. The noise from all the other kids who get in their head. So your kid who's got all the opportunity in the world can get talked out of their opportunities by someone else who has none. So those are the things that when you're domestic, when you're a homegrown product of our country and our society, if you don't have someone with the intellectual, emotional intelligence to explain to you before it happens to you what to look for and how to value yourself as a human, it's so easy to get talked out of your inheritance or any type of work, any type of legacy that's been built for you. And I'll hear people say things like, George Bush. George Bush was an alcoholic. If it weren't for his parents, he wouldn't be president. And I look at it as, so if you think he's an alcoholic, then an alcoholic can become the president of the United States, but you couldn't. Why is that? So people make excuses for why certain people can be successful. Everyone has the opportunity to be successful. Rich, poor, black, white, Hispanic, native born, immigrant, doesn't matter. If you can get the distractions out of your head and not let someone get into your mind and create the fear and the doubt, you can monetize any idea, any service you have. And if you can scale it, you can become a millionaire, you can become a billionaire. You just got to be able to block out the noise. And then here's the thing is this. Don't get me wrong. When I was a young guy and if someone said something to me and my dad wasn't around and I didn't like it and I thought it was some racist or bigoted or just a negative comment, I was a strong kid. I worked outside every day. I wrestled, I boxed. And when I was a teenager, I might punish you a little bit. And then I grew up and I realized I can't allow someone to get me to behave in a way that I can lose my freedom or my life.
Right.
And they get to walk away.
That's exactly right.
And so there's a certain level of emotional intelligence that if you can embrace the fact that you're here on this planet for a mission and you have vision and you want to build a legacy, then you focus on the success, the power, the money. And I've heard people say, money can't buy you happiness. Okay, but I could take a homeless person off the street, give them a job, and help them get their family back on their feet. A guy who has nothing but opinions and anger can do nothing for this person. So money may not be able to buy happiness, but it can buy an apartment. It can buy medical. If you can save a life, I think that's happiness, right? There's no store that's called a happy store that I may not be able to go to and spend my money at. But when you keep your focus right and in the right place, if I can trade my emotions for power and wherewithal and influence and money, I can change the world. But my feelings and my emotions, I'll be invisible. I'll be a thing of the past as soon as I make the bad decision and I'm on the bad side of life.
Victor, very interesting about money. I see money as oxygen. We don't think about oxygen right now, other than I mention it, because there's plenty of it.
For now.
Well, at this moment, as you walk around all day, you're not thinking about oxygen. But if you empty the room of it, that's pretty much all you're thinking about.
Yeah.
And that's how I think of money. I don't really care about money, and money can't buy happiness, but money does finance what you care about. I have a 22-year-old son with mild cerebral palsy, mild autism. He didn't walk or speak till he's 5. Now he's doing a lot of things. And I spent, in his first 11 years, over $500,000 outside of, out-of-pocket medical.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always grateful that I could do whatever therapy, try this, that. I don't have to get into what that particular one matters to me a lot. Because there's some people that have a struggle with, money's the root, I don't know which thing worked with my son. I can't say which thing. We threw the kitchen sink at him and he's doing a lot now. And I don't know which thing did it. He never jumped up after any particular therapy. But I like to bring that up because I think for even the naysayers, it's hard for someone to have something bad to say about getting your kid going, right? Who have an issue.
Absolutely.
Or anyone with medical. Could be your parent, could be anyone. So I don't need to get into other specific examples. But like you said, the homeless person, I know people that have needed money for immigration and, like you said, taking care of family, back home, education, creating, like you in business, creating ecosystem so that there's more opportunities for somebody to get going.
Absolutely.
Food, food versus no food. Now we can get into quality of food versus, just food, to fill the gap in your stomach. Money is important for that as long, to me, it just finances what's important to you. That's all. That's all. Now, there was a time in my life where, in my younger days, where having something to show off mattered. And I don't know if I just got older. I don't know if the 7 million books in therapy did it, or meeting guys like you. But because I try to steal something from everybody, so I appreciate it.
That's good.
So, but later I found that the things that used to matter to me for showing off, which if that's all they were for, they don't matter to me at all. But like literally, that's not like a false modesty thing or anything. But if it became time together with the family, perfect example is a boat. There was a time that I had a boat just to compete with my friends or show off with my friends in my early 20s. Later, it was time together with the family, really precious, and I could care less if anyone saw it or knew about it, other than entertaining, right? Other than bringing fellowship. That's the term, fellowship. Now, is your dad still around?
Nope, my dad passed away at 75, and so did my mother.
God, I'd like to meet your dad.
He was a great man. Great man.
That little thing that you gave that he said, are they ever getting out of the car? Takes so much strength, so much maturity, so much looking 40,000-foot view, so sage, so worried about your well-being so you don't get yourself killed or unable to provide or, any of those things. I've had opportunities in my life where it could have been easily justified to kill somebody or mess them up.
But you had Gary. Gary did it for you, so don't worry about it.
But no, oh God, I wish I had his number. Like if I could have, there's been a couple of times where I think I could have killed or maimed someone where if I had a jury, I probably could have got let off if they heard the story. Like, I think, I don't know,
Yeah.
But the thing that stopped me is, as much as my testosterone and my justification as a father and, blah, 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 could put me in that situation of losing it a little. The thing that brought me back on one of them that I carried forward is if you're in jail, you'll never be able to provide for your kids again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think about your dad. I love your dad. I was really hoping you'd say he's still around because I would love to meet a guy like that. I remember my dad used to tell me when I would sell cars and I would say, Dad, they're talking about Jews or whatever and saying whatever. And he'd say, well, when on his independent, mainly antique and classic restored Model A's for $1,295 that he felt guilty about because he was making $400 a copy and he never made that much on a car until 78 in Detroit, in Royal Oak, part of Detroit. My grandpa that worked for him after he retired, when people would talk like that, he used to say, Jeff, all my used to tell my dad to do, I'll tell you the same thing. Just make a mistake in your favor on the license plate fee every time. Now, he used to be able to keep it. Of course, we would refund it.
Right.
But that was the same lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Just don't get, your dad sounds wonderful. So I'm sure that you're a phenomenal father. Sure of it.
Thank you. I try. It takes a lot of balance, and when I had my USL soccer team, my daughter, Jordan, was my assistant general manager. And so it was great to watch her grow and, manage coaches and in the front office and contracts and ticketing. And so, again, a lot of these business ventures that I'm involved in, it's an opportunity for me to work with my kids, spend quality time with them, and for them to get to see the human. And I remember years ago, I worked for a company before automotive, and I worked like in the mailroom. I was, did copying and sorted mail, and it was a training company, the largest training company in the world. And I watched a lot of people get promotions, and I never got a promotion. And I just kept working hard in this mailroom. And one summer, the president of the company's son comes and works for the summer, and they stick him in the mailroom with me. And this kid, had some issues and never was interested in working for the company. And so all of a sudden he works with me and he comes home and he's excited. He wants to come back to work. So what'd you say to my son? This guy, he loves the place and he never loved it before. And so what I learned at a young age is depends on the person who you have the experience with. So if I'm a dad and I come home stressed out every day and you get to see that I'm stressed out, then your opinion of the business, whether it's the car business, healthcare, wherever it is, you're going to think, well, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I don't want to do that because my dad's a wreck. And so I wanted to be able to show my kids that being a professional, being an entrepreneur, being a leader and responsible can be fun. And so for me, I made investments in companies instead of saying, one day when I die, I'm going to leave all this money to my kids. Instead, I said, I'm going to create opportunities that I get to work with my kids. I'm going to give them margin of error to have failures that I can finance their successes and failures so that they know what the road to success looks like and that they're not afraid to try. And something else that I did, I've got this part of Global Metropolis Corp. I created this Global Metropolis Investments, this think tank, and I bought a lot of Robo EP Core 2 robots, and I purchased these robots so that some organizations around the United States could provide robotics training, programming to at-risk and socioeconomically disadvantaged kids. But the key was this, because I've got all these STEM and STEAM teachers and professors who their programs are now getting this advanced EP Core 2 robot. And they're like, okay, where's the curriculum? Where's the training? And they're excited about it. I said, here's the rule. The rule is there is no curriculum. Well, how are they supposed to learn if there's no curriculum? I mean, there's got to be a book, and there's got to be training, and there's got to be... Look, the requirement is this. They get the basic information about the robot, and then they're going to become a part of a collective, and they're going to share data with other kids their age. And if they break it, let me know. I'll buy another part for it. If they do some bad programming, back it up every day and reinstall the previous day code. But what I don't want is I don't want kids that have never had the opportunity to fail or to try. I don't want to eliminate them. And so what a lot of people don't realize is this, and I was guilty of it before. You say things like, pull yourself up by your bootstrap. Kid didn't even have a bootstrap. If he had one, he'd be scared to pull on it because it would be his first bootstrap.
Right.
And so I see the fear in people, even in kids, because they've never been allotted the opportunity to try something and break it or fail. And the first time they get in that, it's okay. Fail forward. It's okay.
Yep.
And so it was eye-opening for me. I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, how much of an impact it was going to make on some of these kids. And so you would see a kid in the room and they would send you updates, and this kid's quiet. The next thing you know, their hands are on something. Next thing you know, they're coding something. Next thing you know, they're on their way and they're part of some code camp and they've already moved on because they had an opportunity to touch something, to be a part of something that they realized they could do it. And they had that spark to go out on their own and make it happen. Because if someone gives me a big old, 600-page coding book full of code in Python, it might intimidate me. But if I'm watching YouTube videos, I'm hanging out with my friends, we're laughing, we're talking, we're building a robot, we're making it do fun things, I'm going to go every time I get a chance and find something else cool to make that robot do. To the point where now I know every single code. I know about Linux, and I know what I'm doing. Just because it's fun, and I had an opportunity to not get in trouble if I didn't learn that guy's way. The Victor Young robotics method. If I can't learn the Victor Young robotics method, then clearly I'm a failure, and I just need to quit.
Imagine that goes
amazing.
So counter. Oh, sorry. It just goes so counter to, for example, typical school and the way they were raised.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know if I'm ready to program Python, but, let me know if there's anything else. I can't sample whiskey.
We'll start you with corn snake. It's a lot. No, there's no corn snake.
Oh, my God. I'll just get a white chip the next day. I'm starting my next 26 years today.
Wow. That's good stuff.
If I started again. Victor, man, you are, God. Why did you drag your feet coming on here?
You're a busy man. I had to wait for all your, other guests to get through the pipeline before I made it on.
You know what? They were just the openers for you. You're like the Mick Jagger.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.